Hello. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the live version of Facts and Cheese in place of our episode that was supposed to go up today. Unfortunately, my cameraman slash editor partner man, Vance, his computer broke, so it's in the shop. Luckily, all of our footage is still, and we will have an episode ready for you sometime soon. But for now, just gone live, and I'm here to answer your questions. Hello, everybody. But for now, I'm Jenn Vega. This stream is attached to a Kickstarter project called Quickstarter Facts and Cheese. Quickstarter was a creative prompt from the Kickstarter team to create small, short fundraising campaigns. And I think we raised a little over $1,000 in 7 days, which was amazing. And the purpose of that was to reboot a show called Facts and Cheese that I started 9 years ago with Vance. Actually, we filmed it just a couple blocks from here, which is amazing. And yeah, so the show is about cheese, obviously, but in the past, I would improvise. I read a lot and studied a bunch about cheese. I read Steve Jenkins' cheese primer from cover to cover. And what we would do is buy 5 cheeses from the store. I wouldn't really know much about them. And then I would spout off as much as I could think of while a friend and I ate it on camera, and I had a drink during every episode, which was probably not the best idea. Every 5th episode, you can tell that it's a little extra saucy. 9 years later, we're back and a little more organized and much more learned about cheese, which is great and better for everyone. So I have 4 cheeses that we're going to show and tell. So starting it off, we have Parmigiano Reggiano. So this is a normal cheese that a lot of you are familiar with. But there was some recent controversy over the summer that people found out that some restaurants and some cheese manufacturers were actually cutting wood dust into their pre-ground Parmesan. So if you don't see somebody grating the cheese, like, don't assume that it's pure Parmesan cheese. I mean, I don't mean to scare you, but you'll know it's real Parmesan by if you see the block and you grate it yourself, and if you see the stamp on the side, on the outside. So it has to have a rind. I mean, well, you can have a middle piece of a Parmesan, because a Parmesan cheese is a large base drum of a cheese. So it's possible that you would get a middle part, but at a cheese shop, you will find wedges like this. They go for about $10 to $12. I know that's expensive, but this stuff lasts forever. You can actually leave it at room temperature, wrapped in wax paper or under a glass cover. Definitely. So if you look closely, so these little white dots are called tyrosine. Those are amino acids that get trapped during the aging process. So they're crunchy amino acids. And you can find them in Parmesan cheese, in Goudas. It's really yummy. Older cheeses typically have that stuff, because that's just how it ages. When cheese is aging, whey is evaporating, and the cheese is drying out and getting a little bit more oily from the natural butter fat in the milk. And so the amino acids, like little bubbles, get trapped. So those are some facts about Parmesan cheese. Do we know how to use Parmesan cheese? Since it's a hard cheese and it's meant to last a long time, you can grate it, you can slice it really thinly. I use a vegetable peeler so you can make little cool curls for your salads. And don't throw away the rind when you're done. Save it in the freezer, wrap it up, and then throw it into your next batch of soup or broth to give you a little bit more cheesy umami. Oh yeah. So that's a Parmesan cheese. The next cheese we have is called pepato. Do you know why it's called pepato? Can you guess what the secret ingredient is in pepato? Pepper. So this is a sheep's milk cheese with whole peppercorn embedded in it. How can we tell that it's a sheep cheese by looking at it? It's shiny. So animal milks have varying levels of butterfat, and goat's milk has the least. Cow's milk is in the middle. It has a moderate amount of fat. And sheep's milk has more fat than those two. So you can see that visibly, any cheese that's been sitting out for maybe 30 minutes comes to room temperature and it starts sweating, that's a sheep's milk cheese. Even fatter than that is a buffalo's milk cheese, but they don't quite sweat. They're going to be a little more pudgy and pokey, like fat. You can tell that I love buffalo milk cheese. Anyway, pepato, semi-hard sheep's milk cheese with whole peppercorns. Now, when you use pepper, they're hard. You have to grind them to make pepper. But in this, you can see that there is a broken one. During the cheese making process, these peppercorns get a little softer. The moisture from the cheese as it ages makes those peppercorns soft. So if you like that game Minesweeper, this is the cheese for you. It's kind of like stepping on bombs and you're like, So it's a Sicilian cheese, aged 2 to 4 months. The peppercorn is added during the straining process. So when you make cheese, you take a milk, you add rennet, which is an agitator. It separates curds and whey, and you strain the whey away from the curds. And so after the whey is gone, that is when they start to mix in the peppercorn. Ding, ding, ding. Hey. So that's pepato. I'm going to have some right now. This one's a little older, so it's like flinty, salty. Excuse me. I need some tea. Okay. Our next cheese. Sort of related. This one's called tomarashi. Well, let's just rewind. I'm going to talk about tomarashi, but I have to tell you about toma first. So toma is a cheese made by Point Reyes, which is in California. And it's a, semi-hard table cheese. It's pretty similar to a Monterey Jack. Toma means that a cheese was made by a farmer, it was hand-formed. And this one is pasteurized and aged for 90 days, and it's creamy and buttery and a little grassy because of what the cows have eaten. Delicious. Already great cheese to start with. But Point Reyes has come up with a new version called tomarashi, which what do you think is in there? So it's toma cheese mixed with shichimi togarashi. And shichimi togarashi is a Japanese 7-spice blend. Let's see if I can remember all the things that are in it. There's chili peppers, sancho peppers, sesame seeds, black sesame seeds, either orange or yuzu peel, ginger. So that's 7 7. So there's one more 7. Nori. So that's 7. But sometimes people swap in other things like poppy seeds, varying other citrus and whatnot. But anyway, Japanese 7-spice, shichimi togarashi, is what you'll find at ramen shops. Usually there's this little squat bottle that you just, put on top of your ramen. And it's meant to, spice up boring things like rice or plain noodles. And not that toma was boring to begin with. I'm just sorry, I didn't mean that. Anyway, tomarashi is a great variation of the toma cheese and very similar to the style of pepato, of putting things in cheese milk to spice it up. Because if you've made, the same cheese for 7 seasons or something like that, you want to change things up. So 2 cheeses from 2 different places, but very similar cheese making process, which is very exciting. The reason why we don't mix the spices in when we separate the curds from the whey is because we may lose some of those volatile essential oils that make those spices so tasty. So we mix it in after. It's kind of like when you're baking and you don't mix chocolate chips into the dough at the beginning. You want to put them at like right when you're about to bake cookies. You know what I mean? Anyway, last cheese we're going to talk about is called manteche. So I was on Arthur Avenue shopping in the Bronx, and I went to Casa della Mozzarella. It's a great place to get burrata and cured meats, and I was already filling up my grocery bag and about to pay when I passed by the display. And I was like, what's that? It looked like, okay, this cheese looks very familiar to a lot of people. It looks like, I've cut it accidentally. I mean, not accidentally, but I've cut it already. But it looks like a caciocavallo, which translates to horse cheese. And that's because when caciocavallo is made, the sacks of cheese are tied with a rope and then hung over beams as if you were putting it on the back of a horse to travel. So that's caciocavallo. And that is related to mozzarella. It's a pasta filata cheese. Pasta filata means that it was pulled and rolled and aged a little bit longer. But manteche is slightly different. It's not smoked. It's still hung. But when the guy told me that it was butter cheese, I thought, ooh, the cheese is going to be super buttery. It's going to be delicious. I cut into it, and there literally was butter. I don't know if you can see that little half moon. So there's this cheese here, and then there's this like half moon of like straight up butter. Like, why is there butter in the middle of this cheese? I dug into it, and the reason is the Calabrian area of Italy uses olive oil. Most of Italy, they use olive oil more than butter. But because they have animals and because it's a sustainable thing to do, you make butter. You know. So how do you store butter when you don't have a refrigerator during the summer and winter months? Because they had an abundance of cheese, their ingenious idea was to store the butter inside the cheese. Like, who comes up with that? That's insane. Anyway, so the way to eat this cheese is to get some toast or bread and spread the butter onto it, and then slice a little bit of the cheese. And I mean, the cheese is going to be a little like, I mean, it's you're not eating this for the cheese, you're eating it for the butter. So the butter over time gets the taste of the cheese, like cheese infused butter, like if you can imagine. Anyway, so that's manteche. Manteche translates to the plural for butter, so butters. Cute. People in Italy may call this burrino. Burrino, B-U-R-R-I-N-O. It is related to burrata in the fact that they're both pasta filata cheeses, and burrata sometimes in that soft gooey filling has butter mixed into it. So this is just the extreme version of that. Manteche. You can either go to the Bronx and visit Casa della Mozzarella to go get one of these, or that brand Belgioso sells pre-sliced versions of it. So you may have to ask your cheesemonger if they can carry it if you don't live in the New York area. So I'm here for you. You can always tweet me. I'm at Randwiches on Twitter. You can also follow me on Facebook, on Instagram, on d.rip, d.rip slash Randwiches. d.rip is where you can subscribe to my recipes that go up every Tuesday. They're 5 ingredients or less. They're base recipes for you to get started with cooking and improve your cooking skills. I also have a $5 salt subscription where I mail you some special salt. This month's special salt is called Urfa Biber, and that was sourced from Oaktown Spice Shop in California, and that is a Turkish pepper mixed with our salt, and it gets all oily and red, and it's delicious. So please check it out. d.rip/Randwiches. And if you have any cheese questions, don't forget to ask me. I'll be back in a couple weeks when Vance's computer is fixed, and we will tell you more about cheese. So have a great weekend and talk to you later.